اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربي الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. اللہ اکبر سبحان ربی العظیم و بحمدہ اللہم صل علی محمد و آل محمد سمع اللہ لمن حمدہ اللہ اکبر سبحان ربی العلی و بحمدہ اللہم صل علی محمد و آل محمد اللہ اکبر استغفر اللہ ربی و اتوب الیہ اللہ اکبر سبحان ربی العلی و بحمدہ اللہم صل علی محمد و آل محمد اللہ اکبر الحمد للہ اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ وحدہ لا شریک لہ واشہد ان محمدا عبدہ ورسولہ اللہم صل علی محمد و آل محمد السلام علیکم ایھا النبی ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علینا وعلی عباد اللہ الصالحین السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ اللہ اکبر اللہ اکبر اللہ اکبر اللہم صل علی محمد صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة والرضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وآله السلام. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. و امام زمان سب پڑھیے ساتھ ساتھ. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. اللہم کل ولیک الحجت ابن الحسن صلواتک علیہ وعلی آبائہ فی هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طاعة وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. سبحان اللہ والحمد للہ ولا الہ الا اللہ واللہ اکبر. اللہ اکبر اللہ اکبر. اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ اشہد ان محمد رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ وسلم. اشہد ان محمد رسول اللہ. اللہم صل علی محمد وآل محمد. اشہد ان امیر المومنین و امام المتقین علی ولی اللہ ووصی رسول اللہ وخلیفاتہ بلا فصل صلوات اللہ وسلامہ علیہ. اشہد ان امیر المومنین و امام المتقین علی ولی اللہ ووصی رسول اللہ وخلیفتہ بلا فصل. اللہم صل علی محمد وآل محمد. حی علی الصلاۃ حی علی الصلاۃ حی علی الفلاح حی علی الفلاح حی علی خیر العمل حی علی خیر العمل. قد قامت الصلاۃ قد قامت الصلاۃ. اللہ اکبر اللہ اکبر. لا الہ الا اللہ. اللہ اکبر. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. الحمد للہ رب العالمین الرحمن الرحیم مالک یوم الدین. ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین. اہدنا الصراط المستقیم صراط الذین انعمت علیہم غیر المغضوب علیہم ولا الضالین. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. انا اعطیناک الکوثر فصل لربک وانحر ان شانئک هو الابتر. اللہ اکبر. سبحان ربی العظیم وبحمدہ. اللہم صل علی محمد وآل محمد. سمع اللہ لمن حمدہ. اللہ اکبر. سبحان ربی العلی وبحمدہ. اللہم صل علی محمد وآل محمد. اللہ اکبر. استغفر اللہ ربی و اتوب الیہ. اللہ اکبر. سبحان ربی العلی وبحمدہ. اللہم صل علی محمد وآل محمد. اللہ اکبر. بحول اللہ وقوتہ اقوم واقعد. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. الحمد للہ رب العالمین الرحمن الرحیم مالک یوم الدین. ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین. اہدنا الصراط المستقیم صراط الذین انعمت علیہم غیر المغضوب علیہم ولا الضالین. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته وارفع درجته بحول الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم واحشرنا معهم. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللہ اکبر، اللہ اکبر، اللہ
یا ایھا الذین آمنوا صلوا علیہ وسلموا تسلیما. اللهم صل علی محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل علی محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل علی محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجہ.
السلام علیک یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیک یا حبیب اللہ، السلام علیک یا امیر المومنین، السلام علیک یا فاطمۃ الزہراء سیدۃ نساء العالمین، السلام علیک یا خدیجۃ الکبریٰ، السلام علیک یا ابا محمد حسن المجتبیٰ، السلام علیک یا ابا عبد اللہ، السلام علیک یا ابن رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علی الحسین وعلی علی ابن الحسین وعلی اولاد الحسین وعلی اصحاب الحسین، السلام علیک یا ابا الفضل العباس، السلام علی علی ابن الحسین، السلام علی محمد ابن علی، السلام علی جعفر ابن محمد، السلام علی موسیٰ ابن جعفر، السلام علیک یا غریب الغرباء، السلام علیک یا معین الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام علیک یا سلطان العرب والعجم، یا علی ابن موسیٰ الرضا ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علی محمد ابن علی، السلام علی علی ابن محمد، السلام علی حسن ابن علی، السلام علیک یا مولانا یا صاحب العصر والزمان، الامان الامان الامان، السلام علیک یا خلیفۃ الرحمن، عجل اللہ تعالی فرجک وسهل اللہ تعالی مخرجک وظہورک، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، اللہم صلی
ہلو.
اور محمد وآل محمد صلوات. غازی تیرے علم کا سایہ صدا رہے. غازی تیرے علم کا سایہ صدا رہے. پورنم رہیں یہ آنکھیں اور سر جھکا رہے.
A request for all Mu'mineen to please come inside. The Majlis will be started.
غازی تیرے علم کا سایہ صدا رہے. منسوب تیرے درد سے مومن کی زندگی. منسوب تیرے درد سے مومن
جس
کی
کا
زندگی
پر
پائی تیری وفا سے. ایمان کی روشنی
سجدے
ہم
کرے
پہ
سجدہ
تیرے کرم کی یوں ہی عطا رہے.
جو پتھر پر علم
غازی تیرے علم کا
سب ہے
سایہ صدا
علم گارے جو پانی پر
زینب کے سر سے چھن کے بھلا کس طرح ردا
اسلام کا
کے سر سے
شباب ہے
کس طرح
عباس کا علام
بازو اگر
ایک
نہ
زور بو تراب ہے. عباس کا علام اسلام کی حیات ہے. عباس کی وفا اور روح انقلاب ہے. عباس کا علم کیا پوچھتا ہو مجھ سے بھلا عظمت جواب ہے، عباس کا علام، مشق سکینہ صرف نشانی تھی پیاس کی، بچوں کا اضطراب ہے، عباس کا علام، ہر دور کے یزید تجھے یہ پتہ نہیں، تحریک انقلاب ہے، عباس کا علام، کرب و بلا سے تابا ابد دہر میں اسد، ہر ظلم کا جواب ہے، عباس کا علام، اسلام کا شباب ہے، عباس کا علام۔ صلوات۔
محمد وال محمد صلوات۔ عباس تیرا حق ہے، زمانہ تجھے روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے، زمانہ تجھے روئے، جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا تجھے روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے، زمانہ تجھے روئے، در لیے یہ پہرے پہ ستمگار کھڑا ہے، در لیے یہ پہرے پہ ستمگار کھڑا ہے، کیسے تیرے لاشے پہ سکینہ تجھے روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے، زمانہ تجھے روئے، جس وقت اٹھایا گیا لاشا جواں کا جس وقت اٹھایا نہ گیا لاشا جواں کا شہ اس گھڑی اکبر سے زیادہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے زینب نے کہاں شام غریبہ میں غازی زینب نے کہا شام غریبہ میں غازی بے پردہ مجھے دیکھ کے بابا تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے بن ہاتھ کے کس طرح تو گھوڑے سے گھرا تھا بن ہاتھ کے کس طرح تو گھوڑے سے گھرا تھا یہ سن کہ بہت اہل مدینہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے مشکیزہ کہیں جسم میں کہیں ہاتھ کہیں ہے مشکیزہ کہیں جسم میں کہیں ہاتھ کہیں ہے جا جا کہ کہاں فاطمہ زہرا تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے ارمان سکینہ کا تا جتنا تجھے روتی ارمان سکینہ تا جتنا تجھے روتی سجاد تیری قبر پہ اتنا تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے پر محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم
ایک اور بآواز بلندتر صلوات عباس اے شیر نیستان حیدر عباس دیتی تھی صدا زینب رو کر عباس اور کیا اسی دن کے لیے مانگی تھی بابا نے دعا آ کے پردیس میں ہو جاؤ گے تم ہم سے جدا سوتے ہو چین سے دری یا کے کنارے بھیا کیا سنائی نہیں دیتی تمہیں حلمن کی صدا عباس تنہا ہیں کھڑے رن میں سرور عباس اے میرے شیر جوان اے میرے بھائی ہو کہاں شاک ہے دل پہ میرے تیری جدائی ہو کہاں اور دیر سے دیتی ہوں بھائی یا میں دہائی ہو کہاں لٹتی ہے فاطمہ زہرا کی کمائی ہو کہاں عباس خنجر ہیں حلقے سرور پر عباس اور گر کے گھوڑے سے صدا باپ کو اکبر نے جو دی دل برے فاطمہ زہرا کی عجب حالت تھی ہاتھ ملتے تھے کبھی گھاٹ کو تکتے تھے کبھی تھام کر ٹوٹی کمر کہتے تھے فرزند نبی عباس لاؤں کیسے لاش اکبر عباس اور بھائی کو بھول گئے دھیان نہ بہنوں کا رہا یاد آیا نہ کوئی پائی جو دریا کی ہوا ہائے کس دل سے کیا تم نے گوارا بھیا، ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے تمہیں یاد کیا، عباس جب چھین گئے کانوں سے گوہر، عباس اور چھوڑ کر داشت مصیبت میں بہن کو بھائی، تم نے اچھا ہی کیا دور بسائی بستی، دیکھ سکتے تھے کہاں تم جو ہے حالت میری، بلوائے عام میں بھیا میں کھلے سر ہوں کھڑی، عباس آدھا لے گئے سر سے چادر، عباس ہائے قیامت کا سما لوٹ ہے ہر سمت مچی، کوئی پرسا ہی نہیں، حالت ہے عجب بچوں کی، تازیاں نے کھوئی کھاتا ہے تماچے کوئی، آگ دامن میں ہے معصوم سکینہ کے لگی، عباس بھیا اٹھو لو جلد خبر، عباس اے شیر نیستان حیدر، بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔
صلوات پر محمد والے محمد۔ جس نے شبیر سے وفا کی ہے، جس نے شبیر سے وفا کی ہے، اس کی مرضی بھی اب خدا کی ہے، اس کی مرضی بھی اب خدا کی ہے۔ اتنی قیمت نہیں فرات تیری، اتنی قیمت نہیں فرات تیری، جتنی عباس نے ادا کی ہے، اتنی قیمت نہیں فرات تیری، جتنی عباس نے ادا کی ہے، جس نے شبیر سے فاتحہ۔ جب زانوے حسین پہ عباس مر گئے، جب زانوے حسین پہ عباس مر گئے، صدمے غضب کے سبتے نبی پر گزر گئے، خنجر علم کے دل سے جگر تک اتر گئے، چلاتے تھے کہ شیر ہمارے کدھر گئے، اور چلاتے تھے کہ شیر ہمارے کدھر، واہ حسرتا کے بے کس و بے یار ہو گئے، اور سر کیسے پیٹے ہاتھ تو بیکار ہو گئے، سر کیسے پیٹے ہاتھ تو بیکار ہو، چادر اڑھا کے وہاں سے امام امم چلے، فرمایا لو کریم نگہبان ہم چلے، اکبر تو آگے لے کے وہ پرخوں علم چلے، سر ننگے پیچھے سید علی امام چلے، سر ننگے پیچھے سید علی امام، جنگل میں شور نالا فریاد آہ تھا، حضرت کے پیچھے اسپِ علمدار شاہ تھا، حضرت کے پیچھے اسپِ علمدار شاہ، اکبر علم کو خیمے کے اندر جھکا کے لائے، سر اپنا پیٹتے ہوئے گھر میں حسین آئے، اور چلاتے تھے کہ بھائی بھائی کہاں سے لائے۔ عباس ساتھ چھوڑ دیا، ہائے ہائے ہائے، عباس ساتھ چھوڑ دیا، ہائے ہائے، ارے چھینا اجل نے ہم سے ہمارے دلیر کو، ارے سوتے ہوئے ترائی میں چھوڑائے شیر کو، ارے سوتے ہوئے ترائی میں چھوڑائے شیر کو۔ لپٹی جو تھی علم سے سکینہ جگر فگار، ہے علی کی رانڈوں میں تھی ہر طرف پکار، پرچم پہ یوں چمکتا تھا پنجہ بار بار، سر پیٹتے تھے جس طرح کوئی مظلوم سوگا، تصویر حسرت و علم و یاس بن گیا، ارے رایت ہی نقل ماتم عباس بن گیا، رایت ہی نقل ماتم عباس بن گیا، ارے جس دم سنا علم کے بڑھانے کا سب نے نام، سر اٹھ کے پیٹنے لگی سیدانیاں تمام، لو الوداع اے حرم سید انا، رایت لٹا کے خاک پہ کہنے لگے امام، رایت اٹھا کے خاک پہ کہنے لگے، بس اب مجھے علم نہ علمدار چاہیے، ارے پیاسے گلے پہ خنجر خونخوار چاہیے، پیاسے گلے پہ خنجر خونخوار چاہیے، جب زانوئے حسین پہ عباس مر گئے۔ اللہم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔
Assalamu alaikum. Please, let's begin with a loud salawat. Brothers and sisters, tonight is 8 Muharram, and tonight is the 9th lecture of Syed Ali Abbas Razawi, Maulana Syed Ali Abbas Razawi. His Majlis will end on Ashra. There will be no English Majlis on the 11th and 12th, but there will be an Urdu Majlis. I have quite a few announcements today, but I'll try to make it quick so we can begin the Majlis. To begin with, parking, please comply with the parking volunteers. We have our lot, there's an adjacent lot that you can park at, and there's also parking at Easy Street. And there's plenty of parking, and please work with the parking volunteers and they'll help you. Today, we released a notice by order of the Glenside Fire District and the IEC management. There is to be no smoking within 300 yards of all building entrances. So please comply with this order. If you need to smoke, please go to the far end of the parking lot near the basketball hoop. There will be no exceptions made on this. Moving on, tonight there will be a Majlis at Dr. Shafiq Badr's residence, where right after the IEC Hussaini Majlis, where Zakir al-Abed Janab Javad Razawi will recite the Majlis. Dr. Shafiq Badr requests your presence at the Majlis. Just like the past few nights, there will be alum that will be taking out from the English hall too. So I request all the youth over here, especially the young ones and fathers, to send your kids back right when Masaib starts, so that they can take participation in taking out the alum. As I've been announcing for the past few nights, everybody here is aware. For those of you in the hall, for those of you in their cars, and for those of you who are watching online, we will have a fundraising tonight, like we do annually during 8 Muharram. That will be during Majlis, and inshallah we'll talk a little bit more about that. But please be ready. I'm sure all of you are ready and you have prepared, and inshallah we will not only meet the minimum expectations but cross that, inshallah. Tonight, during the fundraising, the people in the car, the brothers and sisters in the car, can participate too. We ask you, you have gotten forms as you pulled into the parking lot. You have gotten a pen, a form. So if you want to give a pledge, please flash your lights when we make that announcement. Please flash your lights. A parking volunteer will come and take your pledge. But please do not horn, so we don't disturb neighbors, but please flash your lights. Once again, there's a Sabil of Imam Hussain in the parking lot. Please take your time to visit that Sabil Imam Hussain. I am very quickly going to go over the plan of Ashura. Everybody has the program. But there will be Majlis Azan Hazrat Ali Akbar at 4 a.m. The Ashura Amal will happen at 8 a.m. And we will, once again, we will have one bus that will leave from IEC Hussaini to the procession in downtown. So if you want to make that bus, it's first come, first serve. Otherwise, if you want to go to the procession itself, the Julus itself, it will be at 10 a.m. There will be a $10 parking voucher that will be available. I believe the parking's at 25 North Michigan Avenue. And right after that, 12:59, we're going to have Jamaat Namaz. Now, the 2:15 Shahadat Majlis, there will be no Majlis in this hall. We are going to have a combined English and Urdu Majlis in the new hall. So there will be no Majlis in this hall at 2:15. But at Sham-e-Ghariba, we're going to continue just like we have for the past few nights. The English Majlis will be in this hall, and the Urdu Majlis will be in the other hall. And there will be one tabud which will be taken out after the Shahadat Majlis, and that will also make its way out to the parking lot. And another announcement is, if you would like to offer tabarruk, we still have a few dates available. Please contact Sister Tahira Kazmi. Now, as you guys all know, for the past few years, during Ayam Aza, 8 Muharram has been dedicated as Bakhi Day in honor of Bibi Al-Banin. And on behalf of the Bakhi team, I wanted to call Brother Sajjad Lakhani to give some updates on behalf of the Bakhi team. Loud salvat.
Assalamu alaikum. MashaAllah, thank you, Doug. Just a quick correction on one of the announcement. When it was announced that when you fill out the pledge form on IEC Hussaini, instead of flashing your lights, turn on your hazards. So the volunteer, the vested volunteer will have enough time to get to the car. So this is for the people that are outside watching. Make sure that you keep your hazards on until a vested volunteer comes to you. Just wanted to make that correction. I am here. I won't take too much time. I'm here on behalf of Al-Baqi organization. All of you are very familiar with that. All of you are part of Baqi organization. I just want to give you a couple of updates. You know, the world over, Shianan Ali, we commemorate 8th Muharram as a martyrdom of Maulana Abbas alayhi salam. A loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And rightfully so in Karbala, mashallah, people that are teeming with millions of zawars over there on the Zariya of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and Maulana Abbas alayhi salam. And rightfully so paying pursa to Janab Sayyid Aslamullah alayhi. But if you turn around and look at Al-Baqi, Janatul Baqi cemetery, you will see that there's darkness over there. There's no roof over there. There's no one to light a candle. No one to pay pursa to Maulana Abbas's mother, Bibi Ummul Banin, Salamullahi alayha. And Al-Baqi organization has been fighting the fight for the last 17 years, trying to bring this to the point where there's enough global condemnation to the evil regime in Saudi Arabia to at least allow zawars to go in there to supplicate. You know the demands. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I'm just going to tell you a couple of things. Right now, the reason I'm standing in front of you is that Al-Baqi organization just hired a very high-powered attorney firm from Washington, D.C. So we can actually go ahead to the congressmen and senators and can lobby because they have connections. And plus this law firm, it is an international human rights fighters. And they are right now fighting in the International Court of Justice, ICJ, on behalf of the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar, the genocide that has been going on. And a couple of countries have hired this firm. And Al-Baqi organization just retained them. Last month we were in Washington, D.C., just retained them to do what? To do one and one thing only, to make sure that we are taking the fight all the way in the International Court of Justice, if possible, or in United Nations like we have done before, or we want to make sure there's evidentiary claims against Saudi Arabia. The report is going to come out when we were there last time, that these guys are going to fight for us and make sure that some improvements are made, like supplication, women's rights, human rights, and all of that. The thing I'm trying to say is that all of this costs money. We don't come in front of you, but only 2 nights, tonight and Shab Qadr night. Tonight is the night, even though there's IEC fundraising, I know that. We want you to open your hearts, to open your wallets for Al-Baqi organization. We are also making sure that we are working 24/7, 365. We definitely have mock-ups in Karbala right across Imam Hussein's Roza at Babe Qibla. If you walk down 2 blocks, you will see a Baqi mock-up. There's a Baqi mock-up on pole number 212. If you have zawars over here that are walking from Najaf to Karbala, this year we have also got pole number 212 where you can stop by and you can see the Baqi team over there, and they will be distributing goods and stuff like that and juices and refreshments to the zawars of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. So that's the second thing. Third thing is that we want to make sure that Al-Baqi voice is heard all over the world. So we have, in a way, there are less than 21 months left for the 100-year commemoration of the destruction of Al-Baqi Cemetery in Saudi Arabia. And we are hell-bent on making sure that there is global condemnation on that. We are in the process of mobilizing major states in the United States and international cities to make sure that on Baqi Day, on 8 Shawwal, in 20 months, it'll be about 1 Shawwal, and then after that, we are on one platform, and we will be raising enough voice around the world to make sure that the media and everybody listens to us. Plus, we have this law firm that is going to put pressure on Saudi Arabia through congressmen and senators to make sure that this voice is heard. We want your participation in that. You already participate. This is for the people outside also, for the viewers on internet also. We want to make sure that you contribute as much as you can, because remember, silence is complicity. You can do it by donating. You can do it by going on social media and making sure that the case is heard all over, by spreading the case. You can go on our website on www.baqi.org to make sure that you can get the latest information, and you help us. We have a media team. We have a Baqi studio. We have social media team. Join us. Be part of it. This is going to take off, and we are in the process of, after this Ashra, inshallah, we are in the process of going really fast. Right now, there's going to be meetings in New York. Maulana is there. We're going to do the meeting. Houston is next. San Jose is next. Vancouver is next. So we are planning during this Ashra to go over there and hold meetings to make sure everybody's on the same team. I want you to make sure that if you would kindly donate through PayPal, that would be contact@bucky.org. PayPal, contact@bucky.org. And if it's Zelle and Venmo, finance@bucky.org. Please help us, help the cause, and be part of it, because one day when we are up there and they're going to ask us, what did you do to help further this cause, or what did you do for the Ahlul Bayt in our lifetime, we can say that we always participated in this. Thank you very much, mashallah. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, bulantar salawat.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Once again, please, there's a reminder, please wear your mask at all times during the premises. Now, every night I've been requesting you to come up to here, but today I'm going to request some volunteers to please sit on the stage. Tonight is 8 Muharram, and we have a large amount of people expected, so can I get some children to volunteer to sit up on the stage? Please recite a loud salawat for them. And everybody else, I ask you to please come forward. Sit in by the wall. By the wall. Yeah, by the wall. By the walls, yeah. Again, I'm going to request everybody in the back to please move up as much as you can so we can have space for everybody to come inside. And with this, I'd like to request Maulana Syed Abbas Razawi to recite the Majlis. Loud salbat.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين اذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. أما بعد، قال الله الحكيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Our series of discussions go into its 9th part. Tonight is a very heavy night for the followers of Ahlul Bayt. It's a very painful night. It's a night where all you feel like doing is crying. I know today people have come from far and wide. I know people have desires that they've been waiting the whole year because they know they've come to the door of Bab al-Hawaij. Bab al-Hawaij is that person who was a dua of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Bab al-Hawaij is that person who, when you go to his door, doesn't turn anyone away. Bab al-Hawaij is the last person that you know that you can go to, that after that you don't need to go to any other door. Why? Because he's the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. You know, when you were younger, your mothers tell you that, son, if ever a problem befalls you, just go under the flag of Abbas. Tonight when the flag comes out, many sons and many daughters will be rushing to that flag. Because they know that the minute you have shelter under the flag of Abbas, then both this world and the hereafter is secure. Today, don't feel shy when you cry. Don't feel embarrassed. The reason why lights are dimmed is so that you don't need to worry. You know, your heart knows what significance tonight is. Tonight you need to go into your own zone. You need to build your own connection. Imagine how Baneen must be feeling tonight. Imagine how Sakina must be feeling tonight. Imagine how those people who have no one must be feeling tonight. Though there's much more that I want to say, but I think it's important that we continue the discussion that we've been continuing for the last couple of nights. And then hopefully we'll move on to that part of our discussion, which is the remembrance. And a heavy remembrance it is. But on that basis, I said something yesterday, not to you, only one person was there, 2 people were here. I said something earlier on yesterday. I want to say that today. That is this. That in the darkness of nights like this, a moon shines. For Ahlul Bayt, that's Qamar Bani Hashim. Look, I've just said moon, and tears come into your eyes. Elders, you know better than I do what Abbas symbolizes. So far, your children have given their condolences in the last couple of nights. They've cried. They've given their condolences. But today is your turn to lead, to show them what Abbas means to you. Because tarbiyah comes from the elders. When you teach them, only then will they know the significance of why Bab al-Hawaj was such a strong force in the family of the Prophet. To the extent where Sayyidah Zainab would say, as you know, says, Abbas, when I came to Kufa, my father would say, one day I'll be brought here and paraded in the bazaar. My father's truthful. I knew what was going to happen, but I didn't know how it was going to happen. Every time I looked at you, brother, I thought it's impossible when a sister has somebody like Abbas, that sister be paraded like this. The final time when Abbas came, at that moment Sayyidah Zainab stood up. She looked towards all the women. She said, from today onwards, I can't guarantee your hijab anymore. Quran says this. It says, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا. The sun that Allah is talking about here, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. Why the sun? Metaphorically, this sun is the source in the physical world. In fact, not just a metaphor, it is a reality. Metaphorically, spiritually, but in terms of the physical world, this sun is a reality which shines. It gives life. Had it not been for the sun and the fact that it rises, there would be no life on earth. What gives life is the sun. And so therefore here our tradition says, this Shams symbolizes the Prophet. Shams symbolizes the Prophet. Allahu nuru samawati wal ardi yaths, mathala nurihi kam mishkat. And that mishkat is the Shams in this physical world. And that is the Prophet of God. So know something. What is Rasulullah? Look at the Quran again and see. What does Allah say? Ya ayyuhan nabi. But he addresses the Prophet. Inna arsalnaka shahidan wa mubashiran wa nadhira. Right? O Prophet, we've sent you for what? To be a shahid, and to give bashara, and to warn people. What does shahid mean here? All Muslims will say he's a witness on all of creation. But can I ask you a question? Was the Prophet's eyes a witness to all of creation, physical eyes, or the heart? Eyes of the heart. If it's the physical eye, I can see you within this 180 degree. When Allah talks about the Prophet being shahid, it is a spiritual reality. So therefore understand this, that whether the Prophet is physically here or not, it's not these eyes of the Prophet, it's the existence of the Prophet which shines. The Prophet is a shahid until the day of judgment, which means his haqiqah lives on. And he's a glad tidings as well, he gives glad tidings. He warns people. وَدَاعِيَ اللَّهِ بِإِذْنِهِ وَسِرَاجًا مُنِيرًا. What else is he? He invites people to God with the permission, and at the same time is Sirajan Munir. What does that mean? He's an illuminating lantern. And that lantern is something that until the day of judgment gives light. So understand this. When certain of our brothers say that when Wahi was coming down to the Prophet, he had to go to the cousin or the uncle of Khadija to ask what's happening here, and then he's told that you're becoming a prophet, at that stage, that individual becomes the Prophet's Siraj and Munira. How's it possible? When Allah says in the Quran, so therefore there's a contradiction there. What is the Prophet? The Prophet is that light that continuously gives light, even today. Why? Because Allah said He is Siraj and Munir. Light is given. And so therefore, whenever you go to the Prophet's grave, it's Munawwar. That's why you call Medina. What do you call it? Munawwar. Why do you call it? Because to this day the nur of the Prophet is shining. And what is guiding us? The nur of the Prophet. In the time of the Prophet it was the nur of the Prophet. Today it's the nur of the Prophet. And that nur is passed down from Imam to Imam. That even to this day, if there is a nur in Medina, there's still the physical manifestation of that nur on this earth. And the reason being is this, because the nur of the Prophet will continue to shine until the day of judgment. This is why the hadith says, Awwaluna Muhammad, Awsatuna Muhammad, Akhiruna Muhammad, Kulluna Muhammad. So Allah sends this Prophet, the Risal of this Prophet, for one purpose, and that is as a light. So what is he? وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا. What is the haqiqah of the moon? The moon is then the physical world because it reflects the light of the sun. In the darkness of the night, in the darkness of Valala, if it's not for the moon shining, as it reflects the light, it has no property of its own. Every light that it shines is reflected of the sun. And so therefore hadith says, this moon is known as Ali ibn Abi Talib. And this moon shines. Come on, we're gonna have one more salawat, please. And one more salawat, please. I request all those who are not wearing a mask to please put your mask on. As you know, one of our brothers was taken sick. Please, if everybody can keep a mask on, recite another salawat, please. What is Amir al-Mu'mineen? Amir al-Mu'mineen, as the Quran says, وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا. Amir al-Mu'mineen reflects the light of the Prophet in darkness. What does that mean? After the Prophet eyes is closed, but the Imam himself says, the biggest masaib for me, the biggest musibah for me was Rasulullah when his eyes closed. After that, all the trials and tribulations began. Rasulullah is the sun, but after the setting of the Prophet comes darkness. In that darkness, in fact, what is more evident sometimes in darkness is the light then. In pitch darkness, what becomes evident is the moon. And that moon reflects 100% the light of the sun and nothing from itself. So here Amir al-Mu'mineen symbolizes what? Imam is symbolizing that light. That in the time of Hayra and in the time of darkness, the one thing that you should gravitate towards is the light of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And know something, if you go to any door in the time of Valala, in the time of Dhulamat, in the time of Hayra, then you'll be destroyed. It'll lead you to darkness. So therefore, if you want to understand the light of the sun, go towards the door of Ali. And when you come to the door of Ali, you'll see from his wujood only and only reflects the light of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What is Amir al-Mu'mineen therefore? What is Imam? His wilayah is more important today. Remember one thing. When the sun is at the height, you see long shadows coming. What are those shadows? Darkness. There were people very close to the Prophet, but their shadows were long. And so therefore they blocked themselves from the Prophet. Sometimes you complain and you say, it's been 1400 years, but you have no shadow now. Why? Because it's easier maybe perhaps in this day and age for you to connect. This is why Rasulullah said, Salam on my brothers. And at that point, the companions asked, are we not your brothers? He says, no, you're my companions. My brothers are coming. And there will be those people who have not seen me, but they have iman in me. Rasulullah was pointing towards you. Then in the 21st century, in a time of great problems, illnesses, diseases, but you'll still come and you'll sit here and you'll commemorate Sayyid al-Shuhada. But it's still easy for you. Today, pictures came to me where people are sitting today in Kandahar and they're commemorating Majlis of Sayyid al-Shuhada. It doesn't make a difference to them. They're ready to sacrifice everything they have for Imam Hussein. Even children are sitting there for the Majlis of Imam Hussein. And you can imagine how brutal currently this regime must be. That the Taliban has come in. Bloodshed has started. Let me remind you, don't you remember Mazar-e-Sharif? When 2,500 to 3,000 people were slaughtered, when women's wombs were cut open and children were burnt in front of their mothers. And even then, this nation is such that they never left the side of Hussein and they never left the side of Ali. Those individuals from the Taliban said, you reject Ali, it's fine. And what did they say? Shias of Afghanistan said, whatever happens, we will not leave this pathway. Why? Because on the day of judgment, we have to show our faces to someone. Take pride in the fact that you're part of a nation that's always been peaceful. You've never committed atrocity over anyone, and you'll never commit atrocity over anyone, as long as you're true to that message. And you're that nation who've been killed, but you've never retaliated. You're that nation who's been destroyed, but from that blood, you've become stronger. Your children have become stronger. What is our responsibility, therefore? To continue to spread this message as far and wide as possible, to continue to spread the truth about this message, to talk to people, to tell them the goodness of what Ahlul Bayt symbolizes. Look, just today, to give you an example, we came here, myself and the brother came here together, and as we were leaving the next door, people came. And they said, last night we saw that you had a cradle, that you were, as we saw your women in fact, have this beautiful cradle. Why? What does it symbolize? So I said, next door to those people, I said, look, there was a child who was killed. And in his memory, we take out this cradle. That woman replied, downstairs, neighbor replied. No, she said? She said, it must have been so painful that today you remember this. And she stopped for a minute, and something you could tell in her eyes. And then she said, can I also come and just listen? And I said, look, we're recording for the next couple of days. Whenever you want, you come, no issues. Nobody's going to chuck you out. Nobody's going to make you feel unwanted. You come, you listen, and you'll see the message of Hussein, which is a message for all of humanity. Today, Imam Hussein is still doing his tabligh. How did the tabligh happen? Because of a crib, because of a cradle. This woman, being a mother, was moved when she saw our women bring in a cradle. So you see, this is your opportunity. Hussein brings people. Hussein brings people. You've just got to understand why we do these things. Had there been no cradle, there would have been no question. Our elders who did this for a reason. In India or Pakistan, when there was no Pakistan, when there was India, when you used to take cradles out, who would come? Those people who are non-Muslims come and ask. The philosophy of this was something lofty, and even to this day, this philosophy runs. I couldn't believe it, honestly. You know what? We felt like sitting down and crying in the car. That there's a woman who knows nothing about Islam. Up to this point, as you know, people look at us in a strange way. But one cradle, one Asghar, showed that truly he's a mujahid. 1400 years later, a 6-month-old baby can still give hidayah to a person. And that's something that happened today, a number of hours ago. See, this is what Islam is. Honestly, you know what? You feel so proud being part of this movement. Surely the haqq of Ali Asghar is that you cry over him at least. He's helping you. What we couldn't do, he's doing. One cradle is doing. One cradle is doing. So look, there's another weapon we have as well. And that is the flag of Abbas. And when that comes out, you find the whole world rushes towards it. Because they know under this flag is salvation. In this time, therefore, look, every time I go back onto the topic, then my heart breaks again. Then I try and go back onto the topic, then my heart breaks again. Ya Abbas, look who you are. You turned away from the tent because you were embarrassed. Today all the Shias come to celebrate you and to commemorate your death. If people thought that Abbas wasn't going to be remembered, today the whole world remembers him. The whole world remembers him. This is what wafa means. When you have wafa to your imam, then your imam remembers you. When your imam remembers you, then he puts into the heart of all of the Shia that remembrance. This is wafa. This is love. Love is two ways. If Abbas loved Hussein, Hussein loved Abbas. Look, coming back. In this time, the moon of Wilaya is Ali. But have you ever thought why in the household of the Prophet they would say our moon is Abbas? Qamar Bani Hashim. Why? Because in everything he was closest to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Everything. So look, how do we come back onto this path of Wilaya therefore? What blocks this path? Now look, I was saying, sometimes the shadows are long, right? One of the shadows long, when you're closer to the sun. Therefore you find that there were some people, look at the time of the Prophet in Medina, it's hadith on this. They had so much hatred, they were munafiqeen, that when the Prophet would go in, his naqa, his she-camel, they would come and they would beat the camel. Some traditions, they would hit the camel. That camel doesn't have the blood of the Prophet in. That camel doesn't have the existence, the wujud of the Prophet in. That camel just has a nisbah. If that's the hatred to a camel, imagine the hatred to Hussein. You can understand now why Imam al-Zaman says some things that really break your heart. There wasn't even a small speck on Imam Hussein's body. That's how brutalized he was. If Amir al-Mu'mineen after the Battle of Uhud had 90 wounds on his body, you can imagine what Imam Hussein did. This is what Imam al-Zaman says. Salam on my Jad, whose head was cut like a sheep's head is slaughtered. Salam on my Jad, whose body wasn't on the floor, was on a bed of arrows. Salam on my Jad, where horses trampled over him while he was living. He hadn't died yet, he was living, they were trampling. Salam on the ribs of my Jad. The right rib came out of the left side, the left rib came out of the right side. Seventh Imam says, he says, had it not been for three things, human beings would have been extremely arrogant. And they would have, in fact, never bowed their head in front of God. When a person asked the Imam, he said, Mawla, what was the purpose of us coming from the highest level of heaven and coming to the dunya? The answer was so that you can understand your weaknesses. Otherwise, had you remained there, you would have done iddia of God yourself. Arrogance. To prevent you from becoming like shaitan, you were taken from the highest to the lowest. Because shaitan had done what he'd done. Example was there. Adam was taken to the lowest. Here the Imam says three things. He says the first thing is this, that if a person didn't suffer from poverty, that person would have been arrogant. What does poverty do? It bends your knees and your head in front of Allah. If you were just rich, you would never need the need to humble yourself. What does Allah do though? In your lifetime, He breaks you, puts you in poverty. This is why they said, some of the ulama would say, that we heard from Sayyid Ali Qadi himself, that his biggest trial and tribulation in this world was poverty. He was extremely poor. He didn't know how to feed his children on a daily basis. That's how poor he was. And he himself would say, my test on this earth is poverty. Now remember, the vast majority of Urafa are always poor. Why is that? Because the dhikr al-tawheedi side effect is poverty. Why? Because you're saying, La ilaha, I have no attachments, illallah. And when you truly say it, what does Allah do? He tests you by removing all of the attachments. One of them is wealth. That's why they say the byproduct, and of course not if you recite 100 times La ilaha, there's no problem with that. I'm talking about, we were talking a couple of 12,000 times. 24,000 times, 70,000 times. These are big numbers. 100 times is good. You know, the best zikr actually, according to the Imams and Usul Kafi, it says, is tahleel, is la ilaha illallah. But this is why ulama recommend 100, not more than that, not 1,000 every day. Then the byproducts begin to show. Then the side effects begin to kick in. But yes, it takes you to tawheed, but it also takes you to poverty. So look, that's one thing. Poverty humbles a person. Ayatollah Kompani. The name Kompani tells you there's companies behind him. In his earlier days, his father was rich. There was a time when he was younger. He didn't know, he was stranded in Karbala, he needed to get to Najaf. His father chartered the entire train. And towards the end of his life, this marja of the Shia, the teacher of Ayatollah Bahjud and the teacher of Allama Tabatabai, says as he was walking, his bags ripped, some of his food fell onto the ground, he laughed to himself. He said, do you remember, Kompani, when you were so big, and now you've given everything in the way of Allah? He said, it's not easy. But you get to a stage where you realize, this money has no value to it. It's what you give in the way of Ahlul Bayt that has value, that makes you live forever. Just remember that. Also remember, what you give for the sake of Ahlul Bayt, what you give for the sake of Ahlul Bayt give it back to you in this lifetime. When you put your hand in your pocket and you give for the sake of Imam Hussein, if you do mu'amala with Imam Hussein, believe me, at least do mu'amala of tenfold. Because Hussein can give more than that. Hussein gives more than that. He doesn't give double, he doesn't give triple, he'll give you tenfold. Start working with Imam Hussein, you see. Start working with Ahlul Bayt and you see for yourself what happens. Look, let me tell you something. You've heard this story before, and you've heard it from me before, but this is the place to say it. When that Ra'ib came to Rasulullah, now remember in those days, this is before the Catholic, well, actually no, the Catholic Church was there, but there was a group of Christians who were part of the Church of Jerusalem. So this Ra'ib used to marry as part of the Church of Jerusalem. Their beliefs are different. Church of Jerusalem in those days, the original church of the first 70 years of Christianity, didn't believe in the Trinity. They didn't believe in Jesus, the Son of God. So anyhow, this Ra'ib comes, we don't have time to go into it, right? This Ra'ib comes to the Prophet. He says, if you are the Prophet of Akhir al-Zaman, I don't have any children. The Prophet looks up and he says, look, it's not within your nasib. He insists, he says, it's not within your nasib. This man has tears in his eyes. As he walks out, a small 5-year-old boy is standing there. He looks up and he says, why are you leaving my grandfather with tears in your eyes for? He says, because your grandfather says it's not within my nasib. He looks up. What does Hussein say? He says, grandfather, if it was in his nasib, he wouldn't come to us. We're here to change people's nasib. At that moment, Hussein stands up and he says, I've given you 1 son. And then he stops, 2 son. And then he stops, 3 son. And then he stops, 4 son. And he goes all the way up to, a voice comes from behind, Ra'ib, leave now. If you don't leave today, Hussein's in Jalal. He's not going to stop until the day of judgment. Adam's nasl on one side and what Hussein is given on the other side. What have you come today to? You've come to the Majlis of Hussein. Imagine, when you go to Hussein, what do you say? You say, Mawla, Allah has destined that I come to your door. It may be my nasib that I might not get this, but Hussein, you change nasib. Today, if you don't change my nasib, where am I going to go to in front of Allah? My face is darkened. But you, when we look at you, what do we say? Ya wajihan indallah, ishfa'alana indallah. That's who you're going towards. His wajh, his face in front of Allah is munawwar, is pure. He can show face, as we say in English, in front of Allah. We can't show face in front of Allah. So what do? We come with Hussein. Second thing is this, and I'm going to conclude on this. Second thing is this, from the 3 things. Second thing is illness. Imam says, had it not been for a person getting sick, there being illness, human beings would have been arrogant. Let me take you to this place. Ayatollah Syed Jamaluddin Gulpaygani, Marja Sahib Karamat, one of the great scholars. He and Qadi studied together. They were both students of Khuli Hamadani and Ahmad Karbelai. Both of them were, both in Irfan and then also Faqaha. But the difference was that Qadi was here. But Sayyid Jamaluddin as well, towards the end of his life. Look, it wouldn't be right if I just brush past. Let me give you a bit of understanding who Sayyid Jamaluddin was. Sayyid Jamaluddin had a teacher by the name of Jahangir Khan Qashqai. The name itself tells you there's no Muhammad or Ali or Fatima in the name. Jahangir Khan Qashqai was a big scholar in Isfahan. His story is amazing. He was 40 years old when he came to Isfahan because his tar was broken. Now, if you know, there's a musical instrument known as tar. He was a musician. At the age of 40, he comes. So he looks around and he finds an old man who was sitting there. He goes to that old man and he says, look, where can I get my tar fixed from? The man says, if you go from this road to this road to this road, you'll find it. But the man was Sahib Nafas. And he says something strange to him. He says, now that you're going to fix this tar, when are you going to fix the tar inside of you? All of a sudden it shook him. Remember, when a waliullah says something, the asrat goes into the heart. He shook. He said, if I want to fix myself, where do I go? He goes, go to so-and-so place. There's a madrasa khan over there. Take admission there. At the age of 40, he goes and he takes admission. He becomes a man who was one of the masters of philosophy, irfan, and fiqh and usul. His name became known afterwards as Jahangir Khan. He was a Khan as well, Qashqai. So, one of the people he trained was a person by the name of Syed Jamaluddin Gul Paigani. After that, Syed Jamaluddin went to Najaf and trained under Khuli Hamadani and Ahmed Karbalai. This Syed Jamaluddin, when he was younger, he would go to the Hujra in Taht Fulat. Taht Fulat is basically heaven on earth in Isfahan. It's a graveyard. If you can remember Wadi al-Salam. Now Wadi al-Salam is on a different level. But even here, their prophets buried, awliya buried in this Taht Fulat in Isfahan. He says, one day I went there and I was basically praying. In the process of praying, I saw two men come in with a coffin. And they left the coffin in the room, and I was in the Hujra, in the graveyard, in the vicinity of the graveyard. He says, in the process of me praying, I saw another two men come. And they started beating the body. So I'm in the middle of prayer, so I couldn't break my prayers because he was doing a special dhikr at the time. And they came and started beating the body. He goes, I started feeling wahsha. I started feeling like this idea of being very scared because they had ugly faces. And they looked brutal. And just then, another one or two guys came in. They started to beat this body. And there was a man there reading Quran, and I was trying to point to him and say, look, do something. They're beating this guy. He says, in the process of that, he says, in the process of the beating, he says that it got to a stage where their faces were so, you could say, scary, that eventually he said that I just couldn't take it anymore. It was freezing cold outside. He said, I stopped my dhikr and I started to run outside. I said, I ran outside, I passed out. I passed out, eventually somebody found me. For 3 days I was extremely sick. He says, on the third day, Jahangir Khan Qashqai comes to me and he smiles. He says, son, you couldn't take that, could you? He says, that was just a mukashafa. That body that was there was an oppressor. And these were those angels coming that were there to take retribution. He says, son, stop building yourself up so that you can take more than this. They say that, look, this Jahangir Khan Qashqai was a person. In Isfahan there was a place, in fact today there's a place for Armenian Christians. If you go there, there's a small area there where many Christians live, right? In Isfahan, Armenian Christians. And he said that a group of, you could say, like we have the Tablighi Jamaat, they're the evangelicals, they go door to door trying to convert you. So he says that this group of people came on his door, they knocked on his door. They said, we want to convert you. So he started a discussion. He says, look, let's talk about it. And there he was, using all of the powers of his philosophy, from Greek philosophy to Persian philosophy, from Plotinus all the way to Socrates, teleological argument, and this argument, and that argument, and this way, and that way, and this is wujud, and that is wujud, and this is mumkin, and this is wajib bil ghair, and this is wujud rabti, and this is wujud rabati, and this way, and that way, and the other. Every single trick in the book from Mullah Sadra's philosophy is there. He goes, man, these guys are not even moving because they're not listening. Eventually, when he gets to the stage, he goes, listen. Now he could do mubahila. Oh, there's one more thing. He says, if Jesus himself came and told you, would you stop? He says, if Jesus came, he says, okay. Takes out of the spear. Begins to recite. All of these people who were there, they said it was as if a veil was removed from our eyes and we saw Jesus himself coming. And as Jesus came, he just said one thing. He said, my followers, just know one thing. This era, this zaman is the zaman of Ali and Awlad Ali. You attach yourself to him. On that basis, if we can pause and recite a salawat. And another salawat. And another salawat, please. As at this point where I'd request, if you put your hands in your pockets and you donate for your center, inshallah, that center that's been helping you in these last couple of nights with another salawat.
Can we please get the lights in the back? Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, it is now time to say Labbaik Ya Hussein, like we do every year on 8th Muharram for our annual fundraiser. And to begin the fundraiser, I'd like to call on Brother Ali Hussein and Brother Jafar Lakhani to the stage. Please recite a loud salawat for them.
Test. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Assalamu alaikum, mu'mineen and mu'minat. We apologize for this inconvenience. We understand the significance of this night. We will inshallah hear the Masayib of Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam. Salawat. My dear friend Jafar and I come to you often on the night of the 8th Muharram for our annual fundraising efforts. And with respect to Maulana Syed Ali Abbas al-Rizvi, as he talked about yesterday in his Majlis, we come here from work and school and other obligations that we have to be a part of something bigger. We are the Azadars of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and that is why we're here to mourn. In order to keep these outstanding majalis going, in order to have the ability to listen to outstanding, prestigious Islamic scholars as we are week after week, we do require your financial support. Now, how did we get to this something bigger, this IEC Husseini? We all contributed to be here today in this magnificent facility that we've had, and now a facility that's over about 7 acres, I believe. We put this together. Part of putting it together requires continued financial contribution in order to keep these outstanding programs going, particularly the reason for why we exist, that is for Majalis as I Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Bar Muhammad wa Muhammad salawat. So cognizant of time, let me be quick. I'd like Jafar and I, on behalf of IEC Husseini, as servants of this Imam Barga, would like to ask for your donation for IEC operations. Just for programming alone in a given year, it costs approximately $122,000 to offer the numerous various Islamic education and programs for you as individuals and as a family. So with that being said, we do have volunteers that are located toward the back of the building, back of this hall. What we'd like to ask is if you're willing to contribute, please raise your hand and the volunteer will provide you a slip which you could fill out appropriately with the necessary information. Now, in previous years, we have asked for the 72 drive, which encompasses a $500 donation, individual donation. But let's keep it simple here. No donation is too small. Whatever is comfortable for you, please be as generous as possible. Whatever is comfortable for you, please make that note and identify yourself and donate to this wonderful, wonderful Imam Barga that we are all blessed to be a part of. So at this time, I'd like to ask the Mu'mineen sitting here, if you would like to contribute, to please begin to raise your hand. And I'd like to ask the volunteers, either side of the hall, please notice and provide a donation slip to those Mu'mineen. One last thing before I turn it over to Jafar, and I apologize, Jafar. We do have a terrific, mashallah, we do have an expansive audience online, and we do have Mu'mineen and Mu'minat who are also participating in this majlis that are in their vehicles outside. So with that being said, if you would like to donate, please, there are on your screen right now, you should see a Zelle payment method. Please go ahead and proceed to do that. But we'd like to ask you for one more thing. If you are online and donating electronically, please also, if you do not mind, send a text to 847-946-1427 to say that you have donated. This is for us to keep track of donations coming in. One more time, that phone number is 847-946-1427. 1427. So Momineen, for those who are contributing, please continue to raise your hand, and a volunteer will be coming by to hand a slip to you. Yes, sir.
Par Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. On a solemn occasion like this, there's really not room to be boisterous or joking around. We, me and Ali Hussein and the volunteers, everybody in front of you that's working on this, we don't relish this opportunity. This is not something that I do not want to be up on at this time. I would rather be listening to Majlis and remembering Hazrat Abbas. In honor, I can ask all of you, please, show that wafa, and you guys can donate towards IEC. If you think about just 10 years ago, we were not in this place. We were not in a place where we had a full English majalis and a full Urdu majalis going on all at the same time. Alhamdulillah, with Maulana's help, with Allah and 14 Masumeen's help, and all of your help, we've been able to make that happen. We have a full hall in here tonight, and we have a full hall in there tonight. About 10 years ago, you guys would have been packed to the brim, just listening to Urdu. Now we have, alhamdulillah, English and Urdu. We have property ready to be expanded upon. And knowing the audience that I sit in front of, knowing the youth that I sit in front of, I know that we can provide services that you guys don't get otherwise. For example, like a gym, parking lot, that gravel out there, parking in the grass, I'm sure that's very difficult. But with your donations, with your help, and of course, the help of Allah and the 14 Masumeen, I'm sure that we can make that happen. Now, rather than taking a pledge card, which is easy, I'll give you an even easier method. Everybody has a phone. Everybody has their bank account linked to their phone. Just open it up right now for me and go onto your Zelle app, and it's IEC Pay 786 at hotmail.com. I'll do it with you if you want. That you're comfortable with. I see, alhamdulillah, I see a lot of young professionals in the crowd today. Just like you give to the center like that. Make it a monthly donation that you can give every single month. This is your investment in your future. Inshallah, you'll be getting married, you'll have kids, and that is the investment for them as well. Please, please, donate just a little bit, and we can all make this end sooner. I would much rather get back to the Majlis.
Jaffer, there is a request to repeat the phone number with regards to identifying yourself as a donor. That phone number is 847-946-1427. And we'd like to thank the Momineen who are watching us online, who are strongly contributing to this fundraising drive, and also to those Momineen participating in Majlis Azad, sitting in their vehicles. Please note that if you were to put your hazard lights on, as was stated earlier, a volunteer could come and bring a slip to you. But as Jaffer just stated, a very easy way to do it is via our Zelle payment method. Again, outstanding contributions coming in for our Momineen watching online as well. Quickly, if there are two Momineen in the hall right now who are willing to donate $500 each, that will be matched. A total of that will be a $2,000 turnaround. So do we have two Momineen here who are willing to contribute $500? MashaAllah. We have a Momin on the right side of the hall.
Par Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
And we have a Momin in the center of the hall. May I ask that Momin to please continue raising your hand? The Azadar that was in the center of the hall.
Salawat.
Straight ahead, straight back in the center of the hall. If that Momin could please continue to raise their hand.
Again, I see, you guys see it on the screen, IEC ZPay 786 at hotmail.com.
Okay.
I'll do it right now with you, right here.
So with those two Momin that just donated $500 each, we'll have another match of $1,000.
MashaAllah. Please recite aloud salawat. And my promise right here, IEC ZPay 786 at hotmail.com. It's as simple as putting it in your phone. You all have the app. Please donate generously, and we can get back to the Majlis as soon as possible.
Last time for appeal. Any Momin who has not had an opportunity to donate yet is willing to donate.
We have an update from the ladies. Alhamdulillah, we have 10 donations already. 5 from the English hall, 5 from the Urdu hall, and 2 from outside. Those watching online, best way for you to donate, if you're in your car, please just turn on your flasher or your headlights. A vested volunteer will come to you with cards. If you're watching from home, please use the Zelle Venmo, username IEC ZPay 786 at hotmail.com.
Okay. And mashallah, I will say that the Momineen watching, not only the strong participation from the Momineen here, the contributions, but for the Momineen watching online, we have an outstanding response. I have about 25 messages with donations and matches. So, mashallah, this is just absolutely wonderful. And again, this is part of something that we built together.
Alhamdulillah.
And this is all of us doing this. And so we know that Jafar and I came here and inconvenienced you during a very important Majlis on a very, very important night. So we'd like to apologize for the inconvenience, but know that this was a necessary inconvenience that we as volunteers have to do to make sure that this Imam Bargah for you and for all of us is available. As one of the most outstanding Islamic institutions, not only in the United States, but we're recognized around the world. And that's because of what we've all done together. We've built Husseini, and that's why we often use the hashtag We Are Husseini, and we are every bit that. So this evening, and as far as myself, we'd like to thank you for your time and thank you for listening to us and your patience. We greatly appreciate it.
Par Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. I'd like to take one opportunity just to kind of give you guys a bit of transparency. As Brother Ali Hussein stated, the yearly programming expenses are $120,000. We also have a yearly operating budget, which is $200,000. These figures, these numbers, we do not make up for in monthly Check-O-Matic donations. It's a necessary evil that we're up here so that we can raise the funds, so that we can break even on a yearly basis. So that's really why we're here. So we can solve this problem very easily. It's as simple as you guys making a monthly donation of maybe even $25 to $50. Like I said, the young professionals in here, you guys give to your 401k. This is just as important, if not more important, I would say. As you grow in your career, you grow your 401k investment. As you grow in your career, grow your IEC donation every month. Please not only do a one-time donation tonight, but Brother Shabir Lakhani is in the back. There is Brother Bakr Musvi outside. They can set you up on a monthly donation. And hopefully, inshallah, my real aim in being up here is that next year we don't have to do this because we have enough donations coming in on a monthly basis that Husseini feels comfortable not to have to take your time on 8th Muharram listening to Majlis so that we could do this. Please recite aloud salawat. Again, IEC ZPay 786 at hotmail.com. Please donate generously. We really appreciate it.
Yes, and On behalf of IEC Husseini, as Jafar said, and for the sake of being redundant, we really appreciate your contribution for the Momineen sitting in the hall today here, for the Momineen watching in their vehicles, and for the Momineen watching online. The electronic payments that are coming into my phone are amazing. Probably about 35 to 40 donations made online for our viewership. And thank you very much.
Please recite aloud salawat.
Inshallah, we will now resume Majlis Azab bar Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Salawat.
We don't want to delay the Masayib any further, but I please ask, there's several people sitting outside the hall who also want to take part in listening to the Masayib, so please I ask everybody to take steps forward so we can begin promptly. Loud salawat. Especially everyone from the back, please come forward, please. And for all of those outside, please come inside. We will now resume the Majlis.
So as you see, here you find that these great people, I want to conclude on one thing. The final thing that the Imam says is death, right? And inshallah we can discuss that tomorrow. I think my time has come to an end because it's important that we move on. But the one thing I will say, the final thing is this, and we can discuss it tomorrow. All these names that I've mentioned in the last couple of nights, it will be important for me to explain to you how they fit into this puzzle. Remember, within the school of mysticism, the Shia school of Irfan, there are a number of schools. That the school of Qadi, which is the newest school, is the Shushtariya order, almost if you can think of it like that. But though know that in the school of Qadi there is no order as such, they never believed in this entire silsila, this idea of that. You know, when people talk about permission, in the words of Qadi and in the words of Sheikh Bahjat, if a person has a spring of water gushing from his heart, you don't need somebody to say that that guy is Insan Kamil or not. So they're a different breed. But that's one school. But the traditional school of Najaf was a school of Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum. And then after that, the likes of Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri. So that was the school of Najaf, and in essence, later on Karbala. The very famous book, Tuhafat al-Radawiyya. A book which is used whenever there's a problem. You recite du'as from that book. If you remember, last year on the 15th of Sha'ban, one of our great scholars in the UK, when he suggested for everybody to recite a dua to protect yourself from COVID, if you remember, that was taken from the book Tuhafat al-Radawiyya, that particular dua. And that goes back to the likes of Murtada Kashmiri. But at the same time, we're forgetting two other schools. One is the school of Isfahan, and here Jahangir Khan Qashqai was one of the pillars of that. And then the other is the school of Mashhad, which goes back to Qazwin, which goes back to Sayyid Musa Zarabadi. And then after that, the likes of Allama Hafiziyan, Sayyid Mushtaba Qazwini, and so forth. And so hopefully tomorrow, if we can do for a short while, we'll look at these schools of mysticism, how they developed, why they developed. What's the difference? There's a subtle difference between all of them. The Mashhadi school is the masters of Ulum al-Ghariba, of Ilm al-Raml and Jafar and Falakiyat and Nujum. These kind of things. They're masters of all of these things. Right? They're masters. And really, if there was any example that could be given, is the example from maybe 400-500 years ago, from when the school of Isfahan first started in the time of the Safavi time, that there were three great scholars. Each three of them were mystics, and each three of them different methodologies. The first was Sheikh Bahai. The other one was Mir Damad, and the other one was Mir Findriski. Mir Findriski in and of itself, master of Ulum al-Ghariba. Mir Damad's du'as are so powerful that after every dua he says, if this dua doesn't become mustajab, give la'n on me. And I've got the manuscripts at home of this many amount of manuscripts. And in that, every time you come across a Mir Damad, or in fact even a Sheikh Bahai says this is absolutely mujarrab, but the style is different. So you had in the city of Isfahan, and when it came to people like Mir Damad, in fact even Sheikh Bahai wrote a ta'weez. That ta'weez he put into a village next to Shiraz when a waba came. Until that ta'weez was there, no waba touched that village. It was only afterwards that it was removed and as a present was given to the British. And I believe you can still find that in a museum somewhere. But once it's removed, the power goes. Similarly, the only place in the world now that you have a living ta'weez like that was Allama Hafiziyan Mashhadi. When he went to, if I say the name, and this is projecting all over the world, but anyhow I don't mind because people do know. There's a place called Sheikhapura and it's in Kashmir. He wrote Isma Adam and he put it in the ground. He says anybody who comes to this location on the 15th of Sha'ban and prays, their dua instantaneously will become mujarrab. To this day people go there. But around another village, he put a ta'weez. And even in this COVID period, when COVID was spreading across India, this village was untouched. Why? Hafiziyan. He put it and he put it in there. This is the power of some of this. This is one school. That's the school of Ulum al-Ghariba. That's the style of Mir Findiski. Sheikh Bahai, Mir Damad. Similarly, in the modern day, you've got the old school of Isfahan, which is finished now, effectively, but you've still got the Mashhadi school. You've still got the Najafi school, right? And you've still got the Mashhadi school. Though in Najaf, people may not know, but still some of the great Urafa are there. So look, we can discuss this further tomorrow. And inshallah we'll continue it tomorrow. But look, as I said before, the main reason for gathering today is to cry of Abbas. Today I don't want anyone to hold back. Today we're going to give our condolences for Bab al-Hawaj. This is that Abbas that even to this day, Muslims and non-Muslims alike go to India and say, Sikhs, Hindus, Sunnis, Shias, all of them come under the flag of Abbas. They say that when Amir al-Mu'mineen married al-Banin, prior to that, he asked his brother, Aqil, do you have a woman in mind who's very brave? Someone with a good nasab, so that I can have a son Abbas who will protect Hussein in Karbala. Aqil goes slightly out of Medina towards Taif. Over there he meets a leader of the tribe, of the Qilabiya tribe. And he goes and he puts a proposal in. When he puts a proposal in, the way that the tribes would work was that they never give a reply straight away. The chiefs are always very unemotional. And they'll go back and they'll speak to their wives and then they give the reply. They say that when Aqil came and he said, I would like to put in a proposal for your daughter. The chief replied, he said, whose proposal? He says, my brother Ali's proposal. He says, which Ali? He says, the one who was the son-in-law of the Prophet. They say he couldn't contain a smile. He got up and he ran. And when he ran to the room, he says, today you wouldn't believe it. He says, what? He says, the Prophet's cousin has come to put in a proposal for our daughter. With who? Says Ali. Wife looks up, she said, did you accept it? He said, yes. Let's go and accept it. So he goes and he says, it's a yes from us. Aqil turns around and he says, no, that's not the way that we Ahlul Bayt do it. How do you Ahlul Bayt do it? He says, until the girl herself doesn't say yes, we don't say yes. So in those days there was some haya, right? So the mother of Baneen asked one of her friends, says, go and speak to Fatima and ask her if she is willing to take this proposal. When they came, at this stage Fatima was expecting it. Why? They said that night she saw a dream. In her dream she saw that Fatima to Zahra came. And Zahra had a wedding dress. And with her own hands she put the wedding dress on Baneen. And then she says, look, marry Ali, because you're going to get a son. And that son will be the protector of my Hussein. Ya Zahra, look at Zahra. Even then, she's taking care of her husband and her children. Even then. They say Baneen opens her eyes. And then afterwards she was expecting it. She says yes. Marriage takes place. Banu Hashims have their swords out. Baneen goes underneath the swords. Look, I'm going to recite slowly so that you understand exactly what Abbas is. Baneen goes underneath the swords. She comes to the doormat, you could say, of the house of Zahra, and she sits down. She doesn't go any forward. At that moment they say, Kulthum and Sayyidah Zainab come forward. They say, mother, why don't you go inside for? She says, how can I go into a house where Zahra was in this house? Both of them, one grabs one arm, the other one grabs the other arm, and they take their mother inside of the house. Says when she goes into the house, for that 1 week when Amir al-Mu'mineen would say, Fatima, 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 something would happen in that house. They say Baneen goes to Amir al-Mu'mineen, says, from today onwards, please don't call me Fatima. Says, why? He says, when you say Fatima, I look at your children's faces. When I see Hussein's face when you say Fatima, when I see Amir al-Mu'mineen at that stage named her Baneen. Though at that stage she didn't have any children. But this is the basir of the Imam, right? Imam knows what's going to happen. After that, the tradition then goes forward. One tradition says for 10 years Amir al-Mu'mineen did dua. After every dua, he prayed for Abbas. A time came when Abbas was born. What happened when Abbas was born? Amir al-Mu'mineen had a sunnah. Any child that was born, he would kiss him on the forehead. When Abbas was born, he was wrapped in a white parchment. Amir al-Mu'mineen opens up that parchment. He kisses the right arm and he kisses the left arm. They say at that moment Baneen begins to cry. She says, is it because this is the son of a slave that you kiss it on the right arm and the left arm? The reply comes, no, Baneen. That's not the reason I kiss. Abbas's right arm will be chopped off his left arm. One day they say Amir al-Mu'mineen walks into the house. When he walks into the house, young Abbas is there learning to walk. He looks up, he gets happy. He looks up, what does he see? He says, one hand Sayyidah Zainab is holding, one hand Kulthum is holding. So they say Amir al-Mu'mineen says, look, today my daughters are teaching my son how to walk. Sayyidah Zainab replies, she says, no father, today we're learning to walk under the shadow of Abbas. Look, I haven't even come to the Masayib yet. But you know what's coming. Look, I wish in my heart of hearts I could recite the whole Masayib of Abbas. I won't be able to. Nor can my heart take it, nor can your heart take it. So I'm going to recite slowly. What time comes? 9th of Muharram comes. Flag of Abbas will come out. But when I finish, then bring the flag out. 9th of Muharram comes. They say Abul Fadl Abbas is walking in the Maqtal with Ali Akbar. Abbas alone goes towards the army of Yazid. As he goes to the army of Yazid, he looks at the entire army. After looking, he comes back. He says, Ali Akbar, let me divide this army into 4 parts. He says, what we'll do tomorrow is, I'll take half of the army, you take a quarter of the army, and the other quarter leave for Ashab Hussein. But Ali Akbar, just do one thing. Just hold your quarter. Just hold them enough that when I've killed my half, I'll come to your quarter and defend you and we'll fight together. And then after that we'll go and help Ashab Hussein. Why? So that your father doesn't feel that he needs to do anything. Give your father a bit of a rest, basically. Mawla shouldn't be doing anything, shouldn't be. That was the plan. What happens with the plan? So the day of Ashura comes. Look, I'm skipping everything. I'm not even reciting. I'm skipping everything because I know you won't be able to take it. Everything coming into that moment. Where Abbas is saying now to Imam Hussein, I want to go into the battlefield. Every time, what does he say? He says, but Abbas, you're my standard bearer, you're my commander. Again, one body comes back. Whose body comes back? Shattered body of Qasim comes back. He says, now send me. He says, no, but you're my flag bearer. Then after that, Ali Akbar's body comes back. He says, but you're my flag. One by one, body upon body upon body is coming back. He says, but these are all the children I raised with my own hands. Let me go into the battle. Mawla says, no. Finally, they say when Abbas was completely perplexed, he looks and he sees a small 4-year-old girl going into a tent. As she goes into the tent, she brings a small flask of water out and she shakes it. And then she puts it on her lips, it's coldness, and then she puts it on her head. At that moment, they say, Abbas saw his opening. He comes up and he says, Sakina, do you want some water? She says, yes, I'm thirsty. He says, all you need to do is go to your father and ask him just to send me. And he says that, and then I'll go. And you'll see I'll get you some water. Small girl becomes happy. She goes running. And when she goes running to her father, she says, Father, please give my uncle Abbas the permission to get us water because we're thirsty, Father. At this stage now, what happens? Imam Hussein can't say anything. Abbas comes towards him. He says, you want to go, Abbas? Go. But I want to take something from you. The tradition says what? He takes something from Abbas. Urafas have said this. Abbas had Nafidul Basira. When he looked at an enemy, he could kill him with his eyes. He says he took the power away, Urafas said. At that moment when Abbas now gets ready to go into the battlefield, they say before he goes, an old brother looks at him and says, your old sister is waiting for you. Go to your sister. The age difference was 21 years. Abbas was brought up by Zainab. Tradition says this. Abbas on a horse goes to the tent of Zainab and says, Syed, I accept my final salam. They say her old sister comes out. She says, brother, come into the tent. Says, brother, come into the tent. Abbas gets up, comes down, goes towards the tent. In the tradition it says that when he comes into the tent, sister says, come down. Abbas was tall. She puts her arms around the neck of Abbas. She says, Abbas, when I first came into Kufa, my father told me that I'd be paraded. Now that you're going in, I know now that our hijab is not safe. I wish I could say anything more than that. All I'll say is this. If I could recite more, I'll recite. I can't recite anymore, but I'll say something from the eyes of Sakina. Sakina calls all of the children. She says, all of the children, come here. Don't worry. Your thirst will be quenched. My uncle Abbas is going into the battlefield. Your thirst will be quenched. You got nothing to worry about. You know what happens? She's watching the alam. The alam is going. As it's going, she says, children, any minute now, my uncle is coming. All of a sudden, she sees the alam fall to the right. As it falls to the right, she stops. She says, children, come. Let me do dua. Puts the water flask on the ground, raises her hand, says, Allah, bring my uncle back. Again, they say, again the flag stabilizes. Alam is stabilizing. She's watching again, and she's watching, and she's watching. Again, the flag falls to the left. At this time now that it falls to the left, she turns around, she says, Allah, I don't want any water anymore. Just bring my uncle back. You know what the tradition says? It says when Hurmala fired the arrow, he says to Mukhtar, he says, when I was firing it, it was as if before that a man was looking up. Says Abbas was looking up. When a person doesn't have any arms, he puts his head on the sky, looks towards. Abbas was praying, couldn't lift his hands up. He had no hands. He was lifting his head and saying something. He was saying, Allah, make sure this water gets back to Sakina, because Sakina is thirsty. When the water drained, then he said something. A voice comes from the sky. It says, Abbas, we've not accepted your dua, but from today onwards, we've made you Babul Hawaij. If anyone asks from you, the dua can become mustajab. You know what Abbas says? Abbas lifts his head up, then says one thing. Allah, if you've not accepted this dua, then accept this dua then. Make sure my body doesn't go back to the tent again, because I won't be able to take it. My ghaira can't take it. That 4-year-old girl is still thirsty. They say that when Abbas was lying there and he had blood in his eyes, a man comes forward. Look, I can't even narrate all of it. A man comes forward. Abbas says one thing. He said, just give me a couple of minutes. My brother is coming. At that moment, a brother whose back was now broken sits down next to the body of Abbas, says, Abbas, it's me, your brother. You know what Abbas says? Abbas says something. He says, my mother said to me that when I was born, the first ziyarah that I did was of you. Now that I'm dying now, I want to do your ziyarah. But Mawla, I wouldn't have troubled you if my arms were there. I would have removed the blood with my own hands. Mawla, because I don't have any hands, could you please just do one zahma and remove the blood from my eyes so that I can see your ziyarah again? If I could recite any more, I would do. But the final thing I'll say is this, is that when Ayatollah Yahya Yathrabi, in the tradition is said, when he was sitting under the mimbar of Hazrat Abbas in Karbala, and when the wa is said, an arrow went into the eyes of Abbas, he began to cry, and cry, and cry. When the wise came down, he says to the wise, please don't recite this anymore. He says, why? He says, I'm an old man, I can't take it. Then he says, maybe the hadith is weak. That night, Yahya Yathrabi says, he says that I saw Abbas in my dream. Abbas came to me and said, why did you stop? My why is from reciting that the arrow went into my eye. He said, Mawla, maybe the hadith isn't correct. Abbas replies, he said, the hadith was correct. He says, but because my arms were chopped off and the most painful place is the eye, I didn't have a hand to take it out. So I was moving my body side to side to take out the arrow. It was hurting me so much. I wanted to call Hussein, but I knew Hussein was broken and I knew Zainab was there. As the pain got more and more and more, I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to call Hussein, so I put my head between my knees to pull out the arrow. As I shook the arrow, the pain intensified. When I couldn't take the pain anymore, I looked towards Najaf and I said, Father, come and help me, because I feel so much pain. Mata Hussein.
نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار 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 نایا دریا سے دل حیدر کرار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا دریا سے دل حیدر کرار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا غیرت کا تقاضا ہے علمدار کی ہستی غیرت کا تقاضا ہے علمدار کی ہستی بچی سے شرم سارے وفادار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا ظالم نے میرے گالوں پہ مارے ہیں تماچے ظالم نے میرے گالوں پہ مارے ہیں تماچے لوگوں میرا باس چچا جان آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا پانی کے لیے بھیجا علمدار کو شانے پانی کے لیے بھیجا علمدار کو شانے پانی کے لیے بھیجا علمدار کو شانے افسوس مسلمانوں کو اعتبار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نہ آیا بازو جو کٹے دانتوں سے مشکی زیادہ بایا بازو جو کٹے دانتوں سے مشکی زیادہ بایا گھوڑے سے گرا زینے پہ اسوار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار آیا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا دریا سے دل حیدر کرار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا آیا ہے علم اور علمدار نایا
آئی جب کر وہ بلا لوٹ کے بنتے زہرا قبر عباس پہ زینب نے کیا یہ نوحہ تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی تیری شہزادی یوں در در نہ پھرائی جاتی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی قبر عباس پہ زینب نے کیا یہ نوحہ تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی کبھی اسرب تو کبھی سوئے نجف دیکھتے تھے کبھی تیرے کٹشانوں کی طرف دیکھتے تھے شہن اکبر کے کلیجے سے نکالی برچھی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی ہو گئی ثانی زہرا بھی ضعیف عباس سانس لیتی ہوں مگر میں نہیں زندہ عباس تیرے ٹکڑوں کی قسم تیری بہن ٹوٹ گئی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی پیاس میں بھی تجھے آواز دیے جاتے تھے زیر خنجر بھی تیرا نام لیے جاتے تھے گردن شاہ پہ جب شمر چلاتا تھا چھری تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا قبر عباس پہ زینب یہ صدا دیتی تھی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا میرے ہاتھوں کو بھی رسی سے گیا تھا باندھا میں بھی ہاتھوں کا نہ لے پائی سہارا بھیا جیسے تو زی سے گرا ویسے میں ناقے سے گری تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی قید خانہ بھی غریبی پہ میری روتا ہے لاش مستور اٹھائے یہ کہاں ہوتا ہے فرض بیٹوں کا نبھائی علی کی بیٹی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا قبر میں چین سے معصوم کو سونے نہ دیا وہ ستم ڈھایا گیا کانپ گئی کرب و بلا لاش ڈھونڈی گئی نیزوں سے علی اصغر کی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی میر سجاد یہ محسوس کرو گے تم بھی آتی ہے روضہ غازی پہ صدا سرور کی آج بھی قید ہے زندہ میں بچی میری تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی تو اگر ہوتا تو ایسا نہیں ہوتا غازی یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے کہ جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا تجھے روئے کہ جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا
تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے ہے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے مشکیزہ کہیں جسم کہیں ہاتھ کہیں ہے مشکیزہ کہیں جسم کہیں ہاتھ کہیں ہے جا جا کے کہاں فاطمہ زہرا تجھے روئیں جا جا کے کہاں فاطمہ زہرا تجھے روئیں عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے ہے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے درا لیے پہرے پہ ستمگار کھڑا ہے درا لیے پہرے پہ ستمگار کھڑا ہے کیسے تیرے لاشے پہ سکینہ تجھے روئے کیسے تیرے لاش پہ سکینہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے سجدے کے لیے جب لیا ہاتھوں کا سہارا سجدے کے لیے جب لیا ہاتھوں کا سہارا تو سجاد مصلی پہ ہمیشہ تجھے روئے سجاد مصلی پہ ہمیشہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے بن ہاتھوں کے کس طرح تو گھوڑے سے گرا تھا بن ہاتھوں کے کس طرح تو گھوڑے سے گرا تھا یہ سن کے بہت اہل مدینہ تجھے روئے یہ سن کے بہت اہل مدینہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے ہے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے 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 ہر پھول نے سر دے کے اسلام کو پالا ہے زہرا تیرے گل پھول نرالا ہے افسوس مسلمانوں عاشورے کو مقتل میں افسوس مسلمانوں عاشورے کو مقتل میں قرآن کے پاروں کو نیزوں پہ اچھالا ہے ہر پھول نے سر دے کے اسلام کو پالا ہے زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے اے موت کبھی تو نے زینب سے نہیں پوچھا اے موت کبھی تو نے زینب سے نہیں پوچھا 18 برس کیسے اس شیر کو پالا ہے ہر پھول نے سر دے کے اسلام کو پالا ہے زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے بس قبر زہرا کی ڈوبی ہے اندھیروں میں بس قبر زہرا کی ڈوبی ہے اندھیروں میں حالانکہ مدینے میں ہر سمت اجالا ہے ہر پھول نے سر دے کے اسلام کو پالا ہے زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے سرکار محمد ہوں اوسط ہوں کہ آخر ہوں سرکار محمد ہوں اوسط ہوں کہ آخر ہوں زہرا کے چراغوں سے ہر سمت اجالا ہے ہر پھول نے سر دے کے اسلام کو پالا ہے زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا یا حسین 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 حسین
السلام علیکم ابا عبداللہ السلام علیکم ابن رسول اللہ السلام علیکم ابن امیر المؤمنین وابن سید الوسیین السلام علیکم ابن فاطمۃ الزہرا و سیدۃ النساء العالمین السلام علیکم یا ابن خدیجہ الکبریٰ ام المؤمنین السلام علیکم یا ابو الفضل العباس یا ابن امیر المؤمنین السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکم یا غریب الغرباء السلام علیکم یا معین الضعفاء والفقراء السلام علیکم یا شمس الشموس ایہا المدفون بعرض طوس السلام علیکم یا سلطان یا ابو الحسن یا علی ابن موسی رضا السلام علیکم یا معصوم خم السلام علیکم یا شہداء کربلا جمیعا ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکم یا صاحب العصر والزمان الامان 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 من فتنة الزمان شریک القرآن کعبۃ الایمان امام الانس والجان اجل اللہ تعالی فرجک وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك وجعل الله من أنصارك وأعوانك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد. نعرہ حیدری.